Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. It's one of my absolute favorite old books. I mean, what's not to like about Jane Eyre? The poor orphan girl, abused, treated terribly, starving to death. She has one friend, her one friend dies. It's a terrible, terrible, agonizing story, but she's tough and she stays with it. And so when I picked up Margot Livesey's The Flight of Gemma Hardy, and someone told me, well, it's just a modern version of Jane Eyre, I was a little skeptical. And sure enough, when you start reading the book, within 5 pages, you say, oh, Jane Eyre, I know this story. And all of a sudden, you become aware of what a rich and complicated story Jane Eyre is, and how many takes you can do on this same plot. This takes place in 1950 in Scotland, which is where Margot is from. And you're not going to be disappointed, I guarantee you. The Flight of Gemma Hardy. The Office Girl by Joe Menno, the hippest, hottest writer that Chicago has ever turned out. This is a book for young readers, but sophisticated young readers. It's about what people in their upper teens and lower 20s really do with their lives, what they do on their jobs, how they ride bikes together, how they try to experiment with the nature of love. The main character, the office girl, is named Odile, which is the swan in Swan Lake, if you remember that. As soon as I saw that name, I thought, of course, Odile. It's very well written, and it's funny. Toni Morrison's new book is called Home, and it's about the 1950s, and it's about an African-American soldier, shell-shocked, trying to make his way back home to Georgia. That doesn't sound like much of a story, but Toni Morrison tells you how hard it is for a black man who is troubled to really make his way anywhere in the United States in the 1950s. He has a place he has to go. It's a little book, and it's just gorgeously written. It's for everybody. I strongly recommend this one, Home. A few years ago, a young Israeli writer named Etgar Keret came to the International Writing Program. I liked him immediately because he was 3 inches shorter than I am, and believe me, I just love that. He also writes short stories that are some of the shortest stories you'll ever find. 2 pages, 3 pages. I think I found a 6-pager in here. The book is called Suddenly a Knock on the Door. Since he was in Iowa City, he has become sort of the biggest thing coming out of Israel, literarily. And I absolutely recommend this book. Glaciers, a novel by a young bookseller out of the Pacific Northwest named Alexis Smith, is a great hot weather book. A lot of it takes place in Alaska. A lot of it takes place in cold places. The main character, Isabel, is a fan of thrift stores. And you might think that's kind of boring, but it's not boring at all. It's delicious because she frequently dreams about thrift stores, and her boring trips through thrift stores in her dreams turn into wild sex orgies. You know, meetings with the devil, meetings with death as a thrift store item. She has a wonderful gay friend who sort of keeps her online. It's a book to read twice. Once to sort of get the feel of it, and once to understand the depth of it. Alexis Smith, Glacier. It is a beautiful book. A lot of you will remember Mark Haddon, the English writer, from The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Everybody who read this book loved it. But almost everybody who read this book thought that it would probably be his only book. That was his subject, maybe, and that was his area of expertise, and no one was counting on him to be a major English writer. Well, they were wrong. This is his third novel, The Red Hound, and it is about one of these incredibly awful English circumstances where you have estranged brother and sister of different classes, different amounts of money that they have control over, and they come together to, well, for a good old English meeting. And of course, everything possible that can happen happens, and it's funny in some of the best places, and it's strange and kind of touching in other places. This guy can really, really write. So I absolutely urge you to read Red House. You're not going to forget this book. It's going to stay with you. Red House, Mark Haddon.